This is Anatomy and Physiology 1 Laboratory, Exercise 1 Lecture. I'm Kevin Tokoph, and we're going to go over the big picture concepts that you need to know for your quiz and practical that will involve Exercise 1. All right, so the first thing we're going to briefly mention is the concept of anatomical position. So you see here a person standing facing toward you in anatomical position, and then here they're flipped 180 degrees facing the opposite direction. Now in anatomical position, we have a person that must satisfy 4 criteria, which are listed here. First of all, they have to be standing up erect. So first of all, they can't be sitting down. They have to be standing straight up with good posture, as you see here, and they have to be facing forward. They can't be looking one direction, left or the right, up or down, facing forward. You notice here also this person's arms are running by their side with the palms facing forward. If your hands were reversed and palms were facing backwards, that would no longer be anatomical position. So palms must be facing forward. And notice the feet are not actually together. They're actually slightly apart. Okay? In fact, you might even say that the feet should be approximately right under the buttocks. Okay? Not at some angle. And one of the reasons anatomical position is so important, just like all of our directional terms that we'll look at in a couple minutes, is that we need for all practitioners, whether it's nurses, doctors, dentists, physical therapists, not only just in this country, but in France, in Japan, Russia, everywhere, there ought to be a standardized universal method and terminology to describe every bodily landmark. And so this is the universal standard that's always used, no matter where you are. So two people from two different countries that don't even speak anywhere close to the same language could communicate about the same position or body part. All right? And you should be able to, for the purpose of quizzes and exams, be able to list these 4 things in so many words. You can put it in your own words. It does not have to be word for word here. All right, let's move on to directional terminology. This is extremely important because a lot of times we want to describe the position of one body part relative to another. For example, we may want to talk about the elbow relative to the hand, and we also need a universal way of describing those relative positions. The first concept is out of the midline. This is the midline right here. It's just an imaginary line that goes from top to bottom and basically goes right across the nose, down the mouth, down the neck, and right through the belly button and down. Okay? I don't think we need to linger there. It's a fairly subtle concept. We also have medial and lateral, and these directional terms have to do with the position of a body part relative to the midline. If you have a body part that's medial, it means it's closer to the midline than something else. If a body part's more lateral, it would be further away from the midline than something else. Now remember, with directional terminology, we're always comparing the relative positions of 2 parts. So for example, we can't just say that the hip is lateral. We would need to say the hip is lateral to something else. So for example, we might say the hip is lateral to the belly button. Okay? Or we might say that the shoulder is lateral to the neck. Now, when we talk with directional terminology, we can also flip the body parts, which means flipping the directional term. So in the context of the first one, we would say the belly button is medial to the hip because the belly button is closer to the midline. On the same token, the neck is medial to the shoulder because the neck is closer to the midline. So in your lab manual, you see that each one of these directional terms is listed with its opposite. In fact, opposites are a really good way to learn these because you kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak. Okay? Now, on the context of the torso, which is basically everything excluding the limbs, the arms and the legs. So the torso is basically everything in this area where my mouse is, including the skull. We're going to consider that also. When we're talking in this region, for talking about top versus bottom, we use the terms superior and inferior. So superior means something is above something else, and inferior means it's below something else. For example, we might say the nose is superior to the mouth, because the nose is higher up than the mouth. We could also say that the chest is superior to the belly button. All right? We could say the mouth is inferior to the forehead because the mouth is beneath the forehead. Okay? And those are the 2 terms that we use when we're describing up and down relative to the torso. What's very important to understand, however, is when we move to the limbs, we have to use a different set of terms. and that's distal and proximal. And for the limbs, that includes both arms and both legs. So if some body part is closer to the torso than another part, the part that's closer to the torso is proximal. If it's further from the torso, it's distal. So for example, if we talk about the knee relative to the foot, we would say the knee is proximal to the foot. That's because the knee is closer to the torso than the foot is. If we flip those, we'd use the opposite set of terminology. The foot is distal to the knee, because the foot is further from the torso than the knee is. We can do the same argument with the arm. We might say that the humerus, which is this bone in here, in the proximal arm, I should say, the humerus is proximal to the hand. Okay, because the humerus is closer to the torso than the hand is. Likewise, we could also say that the hand is distal to the elbow. The hand is further from the torso than the elbow is. All right? Now we can also talk about front and back. Now in the context of humans, which is really what we're going to be talking about in this course, anterior just means toward the front side. All right? So here, anterior, the front side is the same as the chest, the belly side, and so on and so forth. Also the side with the face in anatomical position. Posterior for humans is the back side. Okay? And in some contexts, ventral can be used in place of anterior when we're talking about humans. So because the anterior side is the same as the belly side, we can say that's the ventral. In fact, ventral means the belly side. Okay? In the context of humans, posterior is essentially the same as dorsal. Dorsal literally means the back side. And if it helps you remember what this term is, whenever you see those sharks in movies like Jaws with the fin sticking out of the water, honestly you can see that with dolphins as well, that's the dorsal fin. And that's because the fin's coming out of their back, and so you see it sticking out of the water. So dorsal is back, ventral is belly side, which those consequently, because humans stand on 2 feet, correspond to posterior and anterior respectively. Okay, I will mention this because we will look at some cadavers in the course. Let's say you were talking about a dog that walks on all 4 legs. Well, if you talk about a dog that's on all 4s, their belly side is still ventral, because ventral literally means belly side, but because that belly is on the lowest part of their body, their ventral would be inferior, because it's lower, whereas their dorsal, their backside, because they're on all 4s, is superior. But in general, we're pretty much talking about humans, so understand these 2 terms can be used interchangeably, anterior and ventral, and posterior and dorsal. All right? Talk about a couple more sets. The first one is toward the head. So if we have some body part that's closer to the head, generally speaking, we call it cephalic. And if it's closer to the tail region, which obviously humans don't have a tail, but we more or less have a tailbone, if it's closer to the tail, we'd use the term caudal. Okay, so cephalic and caudal are opposites. Those terms tend to be utilized more for animals with tails, and also that tends to be animals that walk on all 4s, so cats, dogs. We generally don't use the terms caudal and cephalic as much when we talk about humans, and the most obvious reason is that humans don't have a tail. So generally, instead of using those terms, we'll typically use the terms superior and inferior. The only time in this class for these purposes that you should probably use cephalic or caudal is if you have a straight up definition fill in the blank that says something like, blank is the anatomical term or directional term that means toward the tail. In that case, use caudal. Okay? And then we can talk about something not listed here, superficial and deep. So a tissue is more superficial if it's closer to the surface of the body, and tissue is deeper, or deep, if it's more away from the surface or towards the core. So for example, we can obviously see the skin is on the outside of the body, so really and truly the skin, generally speaking, is the most superficial part. Whereas a muscle, like the bicep in the arm, might lie underneath the skin. So if we talk about a muscle versus skin, the skin would be superficial to the muscle, whereas the muscle would be deep to the skin. All right? Make sure you can utilize all these pieces of directional terminology in your book. And here's some examples of questions you might see on a quiz or exam. The knee is blank to the foot. Well, these are on a limb, so we're going to use proximal and distal. And it turns out the knee is proximal to the foot. All right? The shoulder is blank to the neck. Well, now we're on the torso. And we're talking relative to the midline because they're more or less next to each other. So the shoulder is actually lateral to the neck because the shoulder is further away from the midline than the neck is. The chest is blank to the belly button. Well, now we're talking up and down on the torso, so we're going to be using superior and inferior. The chest is obviously above the belly button, so the chest would be superior to the belly button. All right? Now, biceps brachii muscle, you don't need to know what that is exactly. The point is it's a muscle. So any muscle really is blank to the skin. Well, the muscle is going to be deep to the skin because the skin is the most superficial part of the body. So the biceps brachii muscle would be deep to the skin. The last one, the eyes are blank to the nose. Well, we look here, the eyes are above the nose, certainly, so they're higher up. So we could say the eyes are superior. That would be one answer that would definitely be correct. But we also see the eyes are further away from the midline than the nose is. The nose is actually on the midline, whereas the eyes are lateral to it. So in addition to saying superior, we could also say the eyes are lateral to the nose. And in some rare cases, two answers could suffice. Okay? Now, I'm not going to go into heavy detail going through all of this because I don't think it's worth the time, but I will say this, every one of these specific body landmarks that you have in your lab manual, some of them that are on here may not be in the lab manual, but anyone in the lab manual, you do need to know what each of these is. And I kind of like this figure because if you notice next to the scientific name, so for example frontal, it tells you what common name of the body that is. So the frontal region, frontal is the forehead, or for example orbital is the eyeball, or eye, nasal is nose. So this is a nice figure because it tells you which region, which common name goes with which scientific name. Okay? So make sure you look at this. And this is another look at the same thing, except in this case, some of the specific names of these regions are grouped with their more general body region. So for example, in the cephalic region, we have the frontal, which is the forehead, orbital, which is eye, nasal is nose, buccal is more or less the cheek, oral is the mouth, and then on the posterior side, we have occipital, which is basically just the back of the head. Okay? And so you should know probably most of these, just the ones that appear in your lab manual. All right? Now, there's two more concepts I want to cover right now, and these are body planes and then also left and right not indicated here. So we've got three primary types of planes, and these are usually the ones that will appear as answers on quizzes or exams, although there's one other that you should be familiar with, which we'll cover at the end. The first is the frontal or coronal plane. I will usually just refer to it as frontal. And the frontal plane divides the body into a front and back half. This glass thing that's sort of cutting the person, that's the plane. And you can see it's cutting this person into a front half and a back half that's not shown. Now, if we're talking our scientific directional terms, a front and a back half is the same as an anterior and a posterior half. We could equally say that in the case of a human getting bisected by a frontal plane, this could be replaced with ventral and dorsal. Okay? But a front and a back half. Here we have a sagittal plane, and in general, a sagittal plane is a plane that divides the body into left and right halves. Okay? Now, sagittal plane is the very general term. You will not usually use this term on an exam, because you can have a sagittal plane that divides into equal left and right halves, and a sagittal plane that divides into unequal. The type of sagittal plane like this one right here that divides the body into equal left and right halves is a mid-sagittal plane. In fact, I should probably qualify this by saying equal left and right halves. So this one, if we were to be very specific, this one looks like a mid-sagittal. But let's say we shifted this plane over to where it cuts him right, basically cuts his right arm off right here. Well, that sagittal plane no longer yields equal right and left halves because the right half would just be the arm, the left half would be the entire rest of his body. So a sagittal plane that divides the body into unequal left and right halves is a parasagittal plane. Okay? We're going to be seeing a lot more of the mid-sagittal though. And the last kind of plane is the transverse plane, or a horizontal plane. This divides the body into top and bottom halves. And if we're putting this in directional terms, we could say a superior half and an inferior half. And since we're dividing it into a top and bottom, there's really no way these can be equal halves. okay? Which is the same thing for the frontal plane. The only case where we can have an equal two halves is going to be the mid-sagittal plane, and it's going to be a left and right half. Now, a less common plane that you probably won't see as much in medical imaging is an oblique plane. Normally, if we're looking at medical imaging, we see planes of these three types that we first mentioned. But an oblique plane is where you have a plane like this one right here in green that bisects or transects the body at an angle. And normally that angle is going to be some combination of 2 or 3 of these planes. This one sort of looks like it's actually a combination of a transverse and a sagittal plane, because it's dividing the body into top and bottom half, and then it's also somewhat a left and right. Okay? But the key with an oblique plane is it's bisecting the body at an angle, and so you get something like this. All right? We don't typically see as many medical imaging pictures with the oblique plane. Now, the very last thing I want to cover in this video is the concept of left and right, and I'm going to make sure before every quiz and exam where it's applicable to remind you to make sure you focus on left and right. So let's go to a picture like this. So let's think about different parts of the body that have a left and a right component, and that's actually going to be most of them. For example, feet, anything in the limbs really, so the arms, the legs, some things in the torso like chest muscles. In the face we have the eyes, we have ears obviously, not everything because there's only one nose and one mouth, but if something has 2 halves, that is a left and a right part, whenever you're asked about that part to identify it, you need to make sure to indicate whether it's left or right. So, for example, what if I point to this guy's his elbow joint right here on the anterior side? So right there where my mouse is. What would you say if you were given that on the quiz or the exam? Well, first of all, you need to know what the body region is. That's the antecubital region. Remember, olecranon's on the posterior side, but antecubital's on the anterior side. Okay? So, this is the antecubital, but is it left or right? Well, we always talk about it with respect to the client or the patient, so this is his left arm. So to get full credit on this question, you need to put left antecubital. If I were pointing to this elbow on this side over here in my mouse's, that would be olecranal, but this would be his right olecranal. So I need to put the right there to get full credit. Okay? If I was pointing to, let's say, the back of the knee, so this is the posterior aspect of the knee, right here where my mouse is, it's the popliteal region, but it's the left one, so I would have to put left popliteal. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. The exceptions to any of this are really where there's only one of them. Okay? So examples where there's only one would probably be the sternum or sternal area. There's only one sternum. Okay? The mouth, the nose. Now, I'm not going to ask you about the nostrils. That's not really relevant to what we're talking about. So if you have nasal, it's just nasal. There's no left or right of that. There's no left and right for oral. There's no left and right for umbilical, and the same thing for inguinal and pubic. Okay? So again, not as common, but in general, just ask yourself, is there an obvious left and right of that body region? And if there is, you need to indicate whether or not it's left or right. All right? So this has been a review of all the big concepts from exercise 1 today in class. Remember, tomorrow we're going to cover exercise 2. You're going to have a practical quiz over exercise 1. Make sure you know all of this big picture stuff, and then I'll record another one of these for exercise 2 and make that available. All right, see you in class.